Thank you very much. It's a very generous introduction, and I'm certainly very delighted to be here on my first official visit to the Netherlands since becoming managing director at the World Bank, and certainly also very delighted to celebrate with you all the 40th anniversary of the NCDO. It's very impressive to hear the history as well as the thinking and the goals of this organization. And also amazing to see its unwavering effort to promote international cooperation. As the first Indonesia Managing Director, I see myself as representing a new era, which Pascal Lamy just warned you that we are now in the beginning of new era. But I'm talking about a new era in multilateralism where Indonesia, as well as many other middle-income countries, are playing an increasingly important role. I hope that in my short keynote speech today, I will shed some light on this new dynamic of international development work. Celebrating a promoter of international cooperation is most timely, and the global economy right now has entered a period of uncertainty and vulnerability. At the times of crisis, international cooperation needs all its friends. It's happened in the 1970, 18, 19, and now in the new millennium. And the Netherlands is a very good friend. Even when the Netherlands economy was feeling the repercussion of the European crisis with growth slowing down and fiscal deficit increasing, the Netherlands honored its commitment to IDA, International Development Assistance, the World Bank Fund for the Poorest, allowing the IDA 16s to enter effectiveness in 2011 and to become an available instrument to help developing countries coping the effect of the crisis. This commitment attitude to international cooperation reflects the Netherlands' characteristic and historical understanding of the importance and benefit of being an international player. You mentioned earlier as a global citizen. In today's particular context, containing the crisis will require restoring confidence and stability, but also importantly to revitalize growth. Europe needs external demand to offset a painful domestic demand contraction due to the adjustment policy. This is not only solving European economy by relying on external demand, but it will also correct the global imbalances. We should not forget that developing countries' demand is part of drivers of global growth. Global economy has new drivers. Import demand in developing countries is rising at twice the rate of the high-income countries. In 2010, the years of recovery from the 2008 financial crisis, almost half of the global growth come from developing countries. Allowing developing countries' demand to slow will result in slowed global growth and slower recovery. Demand is no longer local. Demand is global, which is why we need to continue to engage. But let us not forget the impact of economic crisis on the poor and developing country. Decline in demand, falling commodity prices, restricted access to credit, and decline in investment and remittance can have huge human impact on the poor. Developing countries will have less fiscal space to withstand another global economic reform. In fact, on a today's situation, because of many developing countries try to do the counter-cyclical because of the global financial crisis 2008, 40% of developing countries now actually experiencing a higher public debt and even deficit more than 4% of their GDP. So their space is also becoming limited. When crisis hit, unemployment rate rise, household income decline, and children are taken out of school and put to work. Family cuts on food consumption and use of health services. And government cuts spending on or divert spending from productive sectors to address the crisis and to respond to the emergency. In short, development is derailed and the impact can be long-lasting. We should not allow an economic crisis to turn into a long-term development crisis or a lost generation. This is not time to disengage. While the role of and the responsibility of many middle-income countries to address global problems and reducing poverty is becoming more and more important, the cooperation and collaboration between developing countries and emerging countries remain critical. With the help of donors, emerging and traditional, the World Bank is putting food first. The Global Food Crisis Response Program is helping 40 million people in the world in 44 countries through 1.5 billion support. And we are working with, amongst other, a non-traditional donor like Gates Foundation through the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, which set up at the request of the G20. Economic crises that have their epicenters in the large developed economy are overwhelming. The magnitude of the resource need to contain the crisis can overshadow any other demand or concern. At the World Bank, we expanded our work on social protection in response to the crisis. This is also a lesson learned from Indonesia. When the crisis hit, it is the poor who actually hit most. And protecting the poor is even more important during the crisis time. With countries realizing the risks of falling to protect the most vulnerable during the crisis, the World Bank put high priority on helping countries cope with the current crisis and be more resilient to future crises. This can only be achieved by building social protection infrastructure that can be extended when needed. Over the last 3 years, we have committed more than $1.2 billion in loan and grants for building social protection. That is 4 times the amount in the last 3 years period before the current time. And for fairly small grant under rapid social response facility, the World Bank also helped countries create workable social protection scheme, which will serve as pipes through which the IDA money support can flow. Despite the economic and political turmoil in the world today, and despite the uncertainty and vulnerability that lie ahead, this is an exciting time for international cooperation in development. Frontiers are opening, new partners are emerging, options are expanding, and positive trends are being enforced. I'm going to share with you some of this shift. We are witnessing an evolving aid architectures. In addition to aid from traditional OECD development donors, new bilateral development partners have emerged. In 2008, new donors have contributed to $12 to $18 billion in aid. That's in 2008 alone. The bank is working with several emerging donors to assist them in building their capacity as a new development assistance providers. There is currently over 260 international organizations and over 56 bilateral donors, in addition to several hundred private sectors and civil society organizations involved in development aid. So you are not the only and the most important player anymore, but this is good. It doesn't mean that you are less important. You're becoming even more important because you create a more new opportunity to partnering with the new donor. The network of development assistance providers is broadening, and if used effectively, it can create enormous opportunity of innovation, scale, and reach. We need to work together based on common principles to achieve concrete results while maintaining flexible process. At the World Bank, our motto now is open data, open knowledge, and open development. The World Bank president even coined the term democratizing development. Development policy is no longer prescriptive. Instead, it is iterative and dialectic. Our clients are becoming more sophisticated. They also have a lot of knowledge and experience in development, and we are measuring up by avoiding fixed prescription in favor of learning from what works. Knowledge now flows in all directions. It is no longer north to south. It's south-south, it's even south to north. This is not about the Colombia want to help the other European country, but it is about the knowledge of development and what is the good policy required to maintain or to improve the prosperity of the people. The World Bank is increasingly positioning ourselves as a facilitator of this knowledge flow. We are partnering with many, both our shareholder as well as the client. This openness agenda is also part of our commitment to managing and delivering for results. We owe our shareholders solid data and reporting on what worked, on our impact on the progress of development. It is easy by bystander to paint a pessimistic view. The glass is always both half empty and half full. We should not be discouraged. Instead, we should document with rigor what development work is achieving and where and how it can be improved. With the dramatic image of the Arab Spring in mind, the enabling environment for promoting good governance has never been better. Good governance has always been good economics, and now we are all convinced. In September 2011, 43 countries signed up to the Open Government Partnership, a multilateral initiative launched by several heads of state at the United Nations. While openness is the first and important step to build good governance, it will require a continuous and consistent effort to build an effective institution, effective and accountable institution, both at the public and private level. At the World Bank, we are updating our governance and anti-corruption strategy and stand ready to enter into partnership and alliance to scale up success and implement practical and pragmatic solutions and work with robust result framework. When it comes to governance, there is no alternative to leading by example. I have my own personal and professional experience, but now in the bank access to information policy make us a leader among multilateral institutions on disclosure. The agenda for development is also expanding and getting more nuanced. Growth alone is not enough. Now growth should be inclusive and should be green. It is not enough to grow the pie, to expand economic activity through high investment level and innovation. Government should also ensure broad-based access to this growth. For growth to be inclusive, government should ensure that investment and innovation translate into jobs. I've been traveling all over the world, especially among the younger generation. They're always asking, we don't interest to the growth number. We just need to have a job. And the job is actually the main and the most important reason that trigger the Arab Spring. In many developing countries, the economic activity expanded, but without creating jobs. This points to policy that reduce costs and barriers in labor mobility, and that increase competitiveness in labor market to improve wages. It points to the need to reduce the cost of doing business, to create employment and reduce informality. Inclusive growth requires more and better human capital. Some excluded people lack the skills to take advantage of income earning opportunity. Some never had the chance to get them in the first place. But for others, it is simply a skill gap between what they have to offer and what market demands. Policies to reduce disparity can help address this skill gap. Disparity can exist in the quality of basic educations across states and between rural and urban areas. Finally, inclusion requires an effective and efficient safety net to protect the poor and to help them manage risk. Whatever the reason for exclusion, whether it is disability, natural disaster, financial crisis, some people have fallen behind and find it impossible to catch up. I have just been to Latin America, where middle-income countries in that region have set the pace in this area. And now in Asia, countries like Philippines are also taking on this critical agenda. From my own experience in Indonesia, there is often scope for better targeted program for the poor that can be financed from reallocating funds from poorly targeted or regressive price and commodity subsidies. Better policy design can really help the poor. It can help significantly. Green growth is not any less demanding. Green growth and addressing climate change are essential elements of sustained inclusive growth. The poorest are often those most impacted by climate change and the environment. Policymakers have opportunity to promote more inclusive growth through clean, green, and sustainable methods. For example, improve access to modern electricity services that are reliable, affordable, and clean is critical to economic growth and achievement of the MDGs. We cannot afford to consume energy with the current situation or the current state. Many developing countries need to adjust to this new demand for electricity and energy in a more efficient and cleaner way. Access in rural area, especially for the electricity, bring large benefit in terms of better delivery of health, education, and communication services. Many of the poverty can be addressed by developing the right and the efficient infrastructure. The World Bank and the World Bank Group is invested nearly $7 billion in low carbon energy option between 2005 and 2009. and we continue to place climate change and sustainable development at the core of what we do. As you see, that the development agenda is increasingly more demanding. As development assistance provider, we must constantly upgrade our tools to be able to deliver to this higher standard. Even skeptics admit effective aid work. In the last 25 years, the share of poor people in developing countries has been cut by half, and the last decade has witnessed impressive development success in countries once thought beyond help. Even in Indonesia, it's also worked, even we have to go through the crisis. Globally, the mortality rate for children under 5 has declined by a third, and Sub-Sahara's economy grew by up to 6% per year on average. This is a very impressive achievement. With exception of fragile and conflict-affected countries, today's poor are very different from the poor countries of the past. When the citizens of the Arab Spring chanted bread, dignity, and social justice, their chants resonate worldwide, and a global protest movement emerged. Even like those will just again show us our irreversible connectivity. We can no longer live alone and in isolation. That is the time for all of us to think not in terms of helping the poor of others' countries, but in terms of supporting the growth of all for the benefit of all. That is in terms of helping fellow citizens of a single global. That is the collective global responsibility of global citizens. Thank you.